In 1848, the discovery of gold brought in over 300,000 people to California over the next 7 years. To put that in perspective, in the 2 years between 2020 and 2022, California lost 500,000 people. That's the entire gold rush, and then some, that left in a fraction of the time. The legacy of the gold rush saw boomtowns sprouting up across the state, many that still exist today, like Los Angeles. Unfortunately, as Americans set out west to manifest their destiny, they did so at the peril of indigenous populations. That didn't stop California from becoming the it place for much of the 20th century, however. That has come to a pretty abrupt halt. People are leaving California in droves, and while the underlying reasons may not surprise you, the actual statistics are shocking. Stay tuned to the end to find out where everyone is moving to and what those states have to say about the sudden influx of la-la-landers. Number 1 is crime. This may come as no shock. Many of the nation's largest cities have the highest crime rates, but California has taken it to the next level. Its crime has increased in the last few years in almost every category. The violent crime rate has increased by 6.7%. Homicides increased 9.1%. Vehicle theft increased 8.2%, and assaults increased by 8.6%. For some perspective, in the same year, the violent crime rate in Detroit decreased by 11%. Detroit. Yep, that's right, Detroit. Whatever the reasons for the rise in crime rates, Californians have had enough and are finding refuge elsewhere. If you were going to live in a high-crime city, you would think it would be cheaper. But this is not the case in California. They pay for that privilege. Number 2 is the lack of affordable housing. After Hawaii, California is the most expensive place to buy real estate in the U.S. Only 55% of Californians own a home, which is the second lowest only to New York. You may think that most people who move to cities like New York or San Diego would expect to be renters, but you will find no relief there either. San Francisco is the second most expensive city to rent, with an average rent of $2,910 per month. And don't think that dropping $3,000 a month on rent will get you a palace. You're looking at a 500 square foot studio apartment. A 3-bedroom, 1,400 square foot apartment will set you back $6,000 a month. In Austin, Texas, where a lot of Californians end up, you can get a 1,400 square foot apartment with 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms for a mere $2,300 a month. That's less than the average price for a studio in San Francisco. There are some affordable places to live, but you're looking at the Central Valley, far from the coast and far from the opportunities that big cities offer. Number 3 is a direct result of number 2. The homelessness crisis is plaguing California, and it's hard to turn on the news or be on social media without a reference to tent cities throughout the state. The unhoused and unsheltered population of Los Angeles has increased over the year by 18%. The city has tried to combat this with hostile architecture, but this creates an ugly urban landscape and clearly targets the homeless without addressing the underlying problem. While many Californians would love to see social change, that change isn't coming fast enough. And it isn't just the people that are leaving. Companies are leaving too. There are many factors that would make a company leave, but one constant complaint is that customers won't frequent a business if they have to pass over people sleeping on the sidewalks, used needles, and hordes of stuff. From 2020 to 2023, major companies have pulled out of California, including Tesla, Chevron, FICO, Boingo Wireless, Charles Schwab, and many more. Number 4 continues in the line of cause and effect, from high cost of living to a housing crisis to jobs leaving. Lack of job opportunities are not something that have been historically associated with the West Coast. People would move to California in droves to chase a dream, get a better salary, or work in one of Silicon Valley's tech boom companies. California has the highest jobless rate in the nation, particularly since many of its leisure and tourism sectors haven't rebounded from the pandemic. With a 7.3 unemployment rate, that is 3 points higher than the national average, which is a great reason to consider a cross-country move. Studies show that the top 3 reasons that people move are for a job, family, or a significant other. Whether it's a dream job or just a job in general, then California is not the place to find it. Anecdotally speaking, many people have reported sending out nearly 1,000 resumes and getting only 1 invitation to interview. Even pre-pandemic, California has always had a higher than average unemployment rate, but that trend is getting worse, not better. Speaking of the pandemic, how can we make this list without it? Number 5 is the COVID lockdowns. This may not be shocking, as we know that people were fed up with the longer than average restrictions, but what is maybe the shocking part is all the ways in which the pandemic lockdowns actually impacted people's decision to leave California. People didn't typically leave during the lockdowns, but rather as a result of its after effects. The lockdowns caused a crisis in mental health, childcare, housing, and joblessness. This is the 3rd time in this video that we've used the word crisis to describe California. It's no wonder people are leaving in droves. The hardest part for Californians was the reduction in international tourism. While domestic tourism has somewhat bounced back, international tourism has not. And with California locked down longer than its climactic equal of Florida, the Sunshine State became a preferred destination for international travel. This sector of employment impacted many people who were never able to return to work. During the lockdowns, California offered a far more generous base unemployment than states like Florida and Tennessee. But after the lockdowns, the latter 2 states have current unemployment rates lower than or equal to the national average. Since the pandemic is the perfect scapegoat for California's mass exodus, let's keep it going with number 6. It's certainly not a shock that the pandemic was the catalyst for a lot of change, but one of its side effects affected states like New York and California more than most others, and that is the shift to working from home. Before the pandemic, only 6% of Americans worked from home. In May of 2020, 35% of Americans were working from home. What a lot of people realized is that if they could make a California salary but pay a Texas cost of living, dreams like home ownership became a reality for many who had previously resigned themselves to renting a room with 37 roommates. The shift to remote working hasn't just resulted in domestic migration, but even international migration. Affectionately known as COVID expats, some remote workers found that the cost of living was cheaper abroad, and the reliability and stability of the US-based job made it possible. Number 7 doesn't have its origins in the pandemic, but since we are playing the blame game, it is evident that the pandemic exacerbated and brought to light something that many Californians are fed up with, and that is politics. This isn't a red versus blue-based assessment, but rather, politics is one of the reasons given when people are asked why they chose to leave California. One study from the University of California, Berkeley, showed that 46% of Californians stated that the state's political culture was the reason they wanted to leave the state. Continue watching to the end of this video to find out where they are moving to and how politics have helped to shape the landscape of those states. Since so many of the reasons why Californians are leaving are interconnected, number 8 ties into several other reasons, and that is the insanely high taxes. People on both sides of the political aisle have cited the high taxes as a reason for wanting to seek cheaper pastures. California's sales tax is the highest in the nation at 7.25%, while its income tax is also one of the highest. They even added a millionaire's tax, a 1% surcharge to incomes of $1 million. That may not seem unreasonable, except when you consider that $1 million a year doesn't get you far in a state like California, where the median home price is over $800,000. This has impacted number 3 on this list, and is a reason why so many companies have moved to more affordable states. businesses are unable to pay their workers a wage that can sustain life in a city like San Francisco. So retaining good employees is impossible without raising wages beyond what companies can pay. And yes, you may think that many of the companies that left California could probably afford to pay workers more, but they would be doing so just to keep up with steep state prices, not to give their workers a better life. And what about all the small businesses? Many entrepreneurs are choosing to open businesses in states with lower taxes as well. Number 9 may come as a surprise, given that California is known for having an idyllic climate. But the climate is the reason many people have chosen to leave. There are vast differences between the northern, southern, and central part of the state, but that hasn't stopped people from leaving the state altogether. Los Angeles has 275 sunny days per year, and the temperature varies only slightly. That may seem like a paradise in the depths of a New England winter, but the monotony of day after day after day, after day after day times 275 gets old. One of the top 10 states that Californians are moving to, 5 of them have 4 distinct seasons, including Washington, Colorado, and Utah. Those in Northern California do have a greater variety of weather, but the area is plagued with wildfires. More than 2.7 million Californians live in parts of the state that are at high risk for wildfires. That's almost 8% of those who live in the state. The Central Valley has wet winters and dry, hot summers. 5 Central Valley cities are ranked as America's hottest, with average summer temperatures in the high 90s, and temperatures over 100 degrees are not a rarity. Number 10 is education. California ranks 36th in the nation in education and spends less per pupil than the national average by over $2,000. It spends less than half its East Coast counterpart of New York. This is an improvement from 2007 when it ranked consistently at either 49th or 50th in the nation. You may think that this only impacts people with children, but what may come as a surprise is that people without school-aged kids have also cited this as a huge problem. When they pay so much in taxes, Californians expect to see the fruits of their labor represented in their tax dollars. Poor quality education can also lead to crime and low employment, so the entire state has a vested interest in its school systems. California also has one of the largest teacher shortages in the nation, with 10% vacancies at the start of the school year, with some districts beginning the year with 25% of their positions unfilled. They pumped billions of dollars into teacher recruitment, but it isn't helping, because people nationwide are leaving the profession. But more specifically, people are just leaving California. Many educators in other states have criticized California's efforts to recruit more teachers because they believe the state has lowered its threshold and requirements to become a teacher. That is highly debatable, as the counter-argument is that other states have excessively wasteful requirements for teacher certification that are more about pumping more money into the colleges and less about improving the quality of teaching. But that is neither here nor there. If you live in California and have kids, private school will likely be a financial reach. And so this is the 10th reason why people are leaving in masses. So where are all the Californians going? And will they still be able to get avocado toast? The answers are not shocking. The states taking in most Californians are states that are polar opposites of the 10 reasons listed above. The top 10 states included Texas, Nevada, and Florida, all states with no income tax. Also in the top 10 are states with 4 seasons. In the top 10 states are many that vote in the opposite manner when it comes to political leaders. And other states have some of the best school systems and lowest cost of living. The number 1 state they are moving to, without a doubt, is Texas. Over 80,000 Californians move to Texas each year, which is 12.6% of everyone that moved to Texas. So what do the Texans have to say? Of course, there are some Texans who welcome the newcomers, those Texans being the ones that moved from Cali the year before. But the vast majority look at their new neighbors with suspicion. They wonder if this new demographic will change the political landscape and turn it into another California. Another more tangible fear for born and raised Texans and immigrant populations are the rising cost of living. It's a form of mass gentrification that is pushing out certain groups from the neighborhoods that they have called home for decades. If you left or are thinking of leaving California, let us know in the comments below why you are leaving. If you love California, tell us that too. We would even love to hear from a native Texan. How are you enjoying your new West Coast neighbors? Like and subscribe to our channel and let us know your thoughts.